Tom Blenner-Hassett used to live up near Mrs. Jones, and he was an old farmer. He must have been well in his 70s or even early 80s then. But we'd come across him, but he'd known the truth since 1911. But he'd been lost for a long time. And but he was a lovely, lovely, humble, meek brother, and we even used to get him out in the ministry. And we used to go up to Listowel, take him out in the ministry up in Listowel.
In the 1920s in Castlemaine, my great-grandfather took a book called Creation, which showed that there was a lot of preaching work going on, even early back then, in the south of Ireland. My grandmother, in the late 1950s, used to actually have the witnesses into her home. They'd basically have a study with her, and Mum and her brothers and sisters would remember that. And then later on, Uncle John would have actually started to study with Malcolm and Tony.
I was left at this very old caravan that was situated then out near Ladies' View, 10 miles out of Killarney. There might only be the two of us. One sat at one side of the table, one sat at the other side. We used to have to go through all the meetings. We even used to have contributions between the two of them. Nobody wanted us anywhere, and that used to set up big problems if we got turned off a site, because we then had to spend time going around farmers and asking them if we could go into their field and all this, that and the other. But you could guarantee that within 7 days the word would get out that we were Jehovah's Witnesses, and then we were down the road again. And that was a big problem, accommodation. So I approached a little farmer out at Fossa. Mr. Connell, his name was. He liked the idea of having somebody permanent there. So he gladly took us in onto that site. And again, within a short space of time, the priest, who lived only 100 yards up the road, was down knocking on his door saying they're Jehovah's Witnesses, get rid of them. And he said no. He says, I would never question who you have in your garden or on your property. And he says, I don't want you coming here telling me who I should allow to use the field. So from then on, everything settled down in Fossa. The neighbours got to know us and got to like us. And that site there, that caravan site, proved to be the home for quite a few brothers after we left. So that set us in good stead, that accommodation did.
We discovered almost by chance this derelict cottage and spoke to the owner, who was the station master in Farranford, and he agreed to rent it if we renovated the cottage, which had been empty for 7 years. So it was possible for brothers who came after us as special pioneers also to use that as accommodation. It was used as the meeting place. It was like our Kingdom Hall, really, but the maximum attendance was usually only 7 or 8.
When we had the meetings, we had no electric, no toilet, no water. So in the winter, we had one candle, which you put near the speaker, who was usually Derek, because there wasn't anybody else. So that meant when you were giving a talk yourself as a sister, you just did it to whoever happened to be sitting next to you, and you had to memorise it, because in the winter you couldn't see anyhow. So that meant memorising the scriptures.
Madge arrived, and she got a caravan parked at Hegarty's field, and then Sheila arrived, and she had a mobile parked there, and they were tremendous assistance to the congregation. Both of them were pioneering, very eager, very zealous, and everybody just got to know them in the town.
Well, Madge was the first to come. She came down in a couple of months before me, and I came down, I think, September. She had her caravan was already parked, and I had eventually bought mine.
One of the first persons I met while I was there, Gerald Stack was his name, an old gentleman, and he lived in a mobile home. But he was so friendly. Got the magazine, started a Bible study, and it was a nice introduction. And I remember him saying at the end, he said, "Would you like a drink?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd have a drink." And of course, I didn't realise what he meant was a glass of whiskey. So, well, I had to have a glass of whiskey. But it was to finish the ministry. He never came to a meeting. Very nice man, but when he died, he had requested a witness take his funeral before he died. And that's what he had. So that was pleasant. And so in the resurrection, who knows what we'll see there.
We moved down to the caravan when Turner, he got ill, and so we couldn't stay in his house, and they moved in with me. And actually they met in my caravan for a couple of years.
I remember meeting in Sheila's caravan, and when we stood up for the song, when the speaker stood up and the person in the front row, they were almost nose to nose singing the song.
When we arrived here, there were already, Frank and Jose were already here with the 2 children, and the Cleverleys, and they had 4 children. And we came with 2 children, and then Sheila and Madge were here, and Geeske. But Bill Turner, he actually bought the trailer that we were meeting in at this spot here.
I don't know what you could call it. It was like 2 building trailers, like the way put together, and that was a Kingdom Hall.
We had a lovely Bible study almost straight away, and they all came to the meeting. It was the Fitzgerald family. So they had 4 children and the mother. So they came with 5 people at the meeting. So it was full house actually, because it was such a small trailer. Yeah, it was nice and cozy. And then gradually more people moved in.
Well, we grew out of the porter cabin. We removed the wall, make it a very small entrance, and then a bigger wall. And then at some stage the sisters could not wear high heels anymore because we went through the bottom of it, poked holes in it. So we had to find something.
Of course, we kept looking for a Kingdom Hall at the time, and it was already a big progress when we were able to use the Killarney Cultural Centre, which is near the centre of town. Heating wasn't great, and there was a gap about like that, which was all along the front wall, and it wasn't so bad in the summer, but in the winter.
I started attending the meetings actually in 1991, and it was at the cultural centre that the brothers were meeting. I remember my first meeting was, I think it was a Sunday morning, yeah, and I actually sat down beside a 12-year-old boy, and he helped me find the scriptures. I don't forget that. Yeah, that was nice. Yeah.
It opened up its doors at the front, which was ideal in the summer because it was nice, but in the winter it was the most freezing place you'd ever know. And I always remember, for a long time, if the wind blew in the wrong direction, there was this long gap along the bottom of the door, and we would have a swimming pool inside the hall because the rain was blowing under.
And to say there was a draft, well, as you sat there, the pages of your Bible would be blown over by this gale that we laughingly called a draft.
A lot of pioneers came into the congregation, all in quite a short space of time. So there was ourselves, and then there was Christina and Susie and Hans and Margie and Penny and Jackie. So that really sort of added a lot of buzz.
It all felt very pioneering about this event. You know, we were all small and sacrificing and freezing, and people were coming along.
When the elders needed to have their meetings, the only place they could all go for privacy was the men's toilet, for the dormitory cell. I love the ministry because coming from Bray, where it was more cities and towns, it was just an adventure every time you went out.
In actual fact, I really loved it because it was everybody got on so well together, and it was so close, and everybody had the same aim. So in a way, even though there was outside things that weren't making it very comfortable, inside it was very nice.
We had to get a bigger place.
It was the only thing we had, so you made the best of what we had, but you really wanted something better.
We built the hall we use now.
Eventually, in 1993, the Kingdom Hall was being built at Erdo. It was so exciting because we had to ask for planning permission. And later on, when we compared the time that we needed with other congregations, it was just a miracle that we got planning permission so quickly. And then some people said, yeah, Kingdom Hall, and this is the Kingdom of Kerry. So they thought there was an association between the Kingdom Hall and the Kingdom of Kerry. And we got planning permission straight away.
And on this site had been for sale for a long time, for £35,000. And we made an offer for 15 and they said yes. So that's how we ended up having the site.
We amazed the countryside because our hall could be built and used in such a short time. They used to drive past, but they would drive past at tiptoe, looking at how they didn't go in the ditch, I don't know. When the children were, to keep them from getting into trouble or in, messing up the work, they had to sit in one corner of the field and I was in charge of them. And there was one little boy, he didn't want to be there, he wanted to be in the middle of it and he didn't want to be playing silly games, and I wouldn't let him go, and he was furious with me. He didn't get out.
You think because Killarney is a town where a bishop resides, you think you might have a lot of resistance or objection, but nobody objected. And even the people in town, like MD O'Shea's, they said, oh, if you need anything during the weekend, we will be open for you, you just call us and we make sure you get it. And that was the attitude you got from lots of people in town. Nobody really believed that we would finish the hall in 3 days, as it was then. And there was a building down the road here, and they said, oh, let's look who is going to be first. And they thought that the others were going to be first. But that house took a couple of years before it was finished.
At first I remember I just couldn't sit down and concentrate. Every meeting I'd get up and walk around to look at everything because of all the work that had gone on.
Yeah, we got so much opportunity then in the territory to witness. It was really lovely.
I think the impact was initially on the congregation because now we had a hall to be proud of. We had a hall that would bear Jehovah's name, and people in the territory would then realise that we were now a permanent fixture because they'd always known, especially with special pioneers, they would come, they would go. Whereas now with the Kingdom Hall, the congregation had grown, we'd now got families. They saw that Jehovah's Witnesses were normal. We led normal lives. We weren't just this odd couple that pioneered or came in for a few years and then went away.
We have a congregation with 105 publishers, so you can see that we're growing. We were featured on the jw.org as witnessing in isolated territory. We have a good response for that. We have many here. We have a Polish group. We have a sign language within the congregation. We have a buzzing congregation, and we're just looking forward what the future will bring for Killarney.